Parlor Room. I'm here with Janet Salinas, and we are going to be talking about a more serious matter, which is COVID, children, and mental health.
My hair is in between, kind of like wavy and curly, and it has a lot of volume. So I'm scared it's gonna go.
Yeah.
So
exactly that.
It's a fine line whether I should or not. I don't know. Hi guys, I'm Janet Salinas Sanchez. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I've been doing counseling for about 10 years now. I'm currently working as a clinician at Mirada Psychological Health Services, and today we'll be talking about COVID, children, and mental health. Specifically what I do, I know I've been counseling, I've had a history of counseling because I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I've been counseling for about 10 years. But then throughout that time, I was kind of like, you know what? It's a little bit different when you're counseling as opposed to now I'm doing evaluations. What evaluations are is I work with a psychologist, and I see mainly children, and a lot of children come in with either depression, anxiety, mood problems or disorders, behavior problems, even like learning problems, right? You see them like at school having difficulties at school, and then parents are like, I don't understand what's going on, at school, why they're failing, why they're this, why that. They have tutoring, they have all this stuff. So we see an array of children, and we evaluate for all different things, for ADHD, for autism, for mood, for behavior. So that's basically what I do.
You were talking about how you diagnose kids. I feel like that's grown, right? Like the amount of children coming up with like different types of mental illness. When we were younger, it wasn't talked about as much.
Yeah, so what was it like? It was a taboo. Now you're seeing children kind of like blowing out of proportion, and parents are working. Like there used to be more stay-at-home moms, and kudos to stay-at-home moms.
Yes, that's not an easy job.
That is not an easy job.
I do it part-time, and sometimes I want to give my 2 weeks notice.
Yes, I think we all saw it during quarantine. And especially right now because they're being stay-at-home moms, teachers, and even working parents. But now you're seeing more of the culture of both parents are working. So now you're seeing children exhibit all these problems because there isn't, as much as we'd like to give them that attention that they need, sometimes there's not enough time in the day to do it. And so we're seeing a lot of activity. A lot of children used to play outside, right?
Yeah.
Their energy was wasted outside, and now it's tablets, now it's, PlayStations, video games, TV, and that's a lot of stimulation for children.
Yes.
So they get bored easily, they don't have a lot of imagination ideas because there's not a lot of time for them to go outside. We give them like the tablet a little bit so that we can eat in peace. Or at a restaurant, they're like, stuck to the iPad or to the phone, and we're all guilty of it, right?
Yes.
And it, to some degree, it does help for them to learn if they're doing like educational videos, but for the most part, that is more also studies have shown it's more linked to like depression in children as they get older, anxiety, just declining mental health. COVID, right? It was a difficult year, 2020. I know that. We can all say that, and we can all agree on that. As adults, I'm sure economic stress, fear, anxiety. I'm sure a lot of us have experienced all of that, especially when everything was so new. I mean, it still is, but at least now we have a vaccine, and people feel a little bit more comfortable with all the precautions being taken place. So we saw all of that mental health issues within ourselves, and that's how we have this like emotional ability to communicate. Hey, I feel sad, I feel angry, I'm frustrated, and even as adults we have problems communicating that.
So as a parent, what signs should I be looking for to know if my kid is depressed?
So I know that's a concern for a lot of parents, and especially because we have to kind of just put it out there. As adults, we're able to go out a little bit, right? We talked about that.
Yeah.
And children, like, they're the real heroes here because they have not been able to go out, so to speak. They don't have a choice. Whether
Yes.
mom, dad, wants to take them out, yes. But for them to have a choice, whether I'm going to go out, despite of what people say or do, or,
Yeah.
they've been kind of like going, and taking
With the
rolling with the punches,
Yeah.
They've been having to do online virtual schooling that's never ever been done in history. They're learning from home. Their life is at home right now. So they're kind of just living an isolated life.
Imprisoned.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, going from being very social and going to school, meeting friends, right?
It's so funny you say that because my son, he's very, very talkative.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I'm like, oh, after a long day, I'm like, oh, I don't want to hear it. Like, just, let me be in peace.
Yeah.
But then I think to myself, like, hey, like, I am the only person, aside from his father, that that we can come home and he can talk to and tell us about his day.
We don't have time to think about the children. Children, yes, they're at home, they're safe. We're trying to do whatever we can to keep them safe. But, they're isolated.
Mm-hmm.
We've stripped from them having any type of social interaction with friends, and that helps them, feel more self-confidence. That builds their character, right? And then they haven't been doing that. So the only thing that they have connection to is a phone, a device, and
their parents.
Their parents. But if their parents are like stressed, right? They're not going to have the best interaction with them. So things to look at for children who have, you might feel like they might have symptoms
Mm-hmm.
either of anxiety or depression, which are most common, I think, right now,
Mm-hmm.
is like not everybody's going to be crying and not everybody's going to be feeling very sad, right? Children exhibit those symptoms differently. They don't have the emotional intelligence to kind of express how we as adults can. And so they might be very irritable. Angry, yeah. They're going to be angry.
I get that a lot.
They're going to act out, right? They're going to be like, I don't care, I don't want to. You might have more difficulties with them doing tasks, kind of interacting with them. They might isolate more into their room. You might think that's normal, especially if you have teenagers. That's kind of a normal behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're doing it too much, you might want to see if they're sleeping too much, if they're overeating, which I think we all have been, especially during quarantine. But if they're, that might be a sign of anxiety. And they might be overly sensitive to what you're telling them. If you're gonna tell them, you didn't do this correctly, they might feel overly sensitive about it. So that's those are some symptoms that you might see in children. They might talk back to you, right? There might be some verbal aggression, maybe some physical aggression in others. But for the most part, those are the signs to look at. A lot of these kids have their phones, they have the computer, right? There's a lot of things that they might, communicate with other people that they might not want to communicate with their parents because they might feel like my parents won't understand me, my friends will.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they're feeling depressed, and they say like they might text a friend or not, this is how they're feeling. Beware of like symptoms
who they're
talking to, what they're saying. Right now, yes, you want to give them privacy, but until they're adults, I say there's no privacy. It's, people might think otherwise, and that's okay. That's my personal opinion, in terms of like the clinical advice, because a lot of children will express how they feel to other friends.
Yes, before they share it with their parents.
Sometimes it might be too late. We've had a lot of parents with children who have had suicide ideation and it's wanting, thoughts of not wanting to be here. Maybe they have a plan, and that's the scariest thing for a parent. Most of the time, they're not going to show signs before they even attempt to do anything. You might think that they're doing everything normal, But at that point, they kind of already settled with themselves that they're okay and at peace with the decision they've made. We
give too much freedom.
Yeah, we give a little bit too much freedom, and especially because I know, they don't have anybody to socialize with, so we might be a little bit more lenient. But that's a concern. Things that we can do to kind of like facilitate, help them feel a little bit better at home. And I think as a whole, because if your child is feeling a certain way, you're concerned, it's going to affect us as a person. But first is, having conversations with your child. I don't think we have those enough.
Yeah, no, not enough. I try to sit down with my kids and just kind of like see what they're up to. Sometimes I try to like do it individually so that they can kind of like express to me like how they feel, what they're going through, but I don't do it all the time. I only do it
as much as
I can, but most of the time I'm like on the go, I'm working, I'm doing a lot of stuff, and I try to like spend time with them by having like movie night or whatever, but those deep conversations don't always happen.
My child might be 2 years old, but her attention span might be short, but having like, teaching her emotional intelligence, like, do you feel sad? I see that you feel sad or angry. I see that you're frustrated, right? I'm listening to what her needs are. Other parents, you might have teens, it's a little bit more difficult to like kind of just get a little bit closer to them. But you want to be open to the sense of whether they want to communicate or not. Feel like you need, they can open up to you at whatever time they're feeling something. It's listening. It's not like hearing them out to see what you're going to tell them. It's just listening to what, how they're feeling. That's one important thing. The other is self-care. I know that doesn't really apply to children, but if you are frustrated, you've had a hard day, you're not going to react nicely, and they're going to just shut down whenever they see you.
Yeah.
So if you have a little bit of self-care for yourself, you might feel a little bit better about spending more time with your child, listening to your child, having those conversations. Activities that you can do as a family. I know yesterday we had little topics over dinner. Just silly topics about like, what if you could build your own house, what would you put in it? And then we have children, the kids talking about what they would put in it, and we listen actively to what they would like, however silly it might be.
Yeah.
But at least they have that sense that they're integrated with family.
Yeah. That their opinion and that they're valued.
That it matters, right?
Yeah.
Understanding that they're also going through situations themselves, and it's not just us. Even though like I know everybody is at some degree, and I know that we're tired, but our children, I think, sometimes they're overlooked. Yeah.
We get our little escapes with our social media, with our jobs, but the kids, they're stuck at home and no social life outside of that.
We have, whether we can explore making new things and trying new things here and there, even if it's at home. But children, most of the time, they need help from parents to do a lot of stuff. If you have concerns about it, it's better to like ask their primary doctor, their pediatrician, over just staying quiet about it.
Yeah.
It's an easy fix. It can be like a question. You know what? My child's doing this and this. It could be normal. Okay, well then that's fine. But if it's not, then they can give you the appropriate help.
Well, when to go, and like where to go. Where would I go to?
Yeah. When to go, it's, if you have a doubt, if you have a concern, don't wait too long, because it might be too late, especially if they're having symptoms related to depression. Like I said, primary doctor is always a safe bet. If you want to have the child evaluated, you want to skip talking to the child's pediatrician, then go ahead and seek out help with a psychologist, have them evaluated. And then we'll take it from there. Once that happens, we'll, this is what we found with your child, XYZ, these are the recommendations. We'll point you to what steps should be taken next. Some kids might benefit more from a counselor. Us as parents, our own personal feelings are vested in our child. So sometimes it doesn't help in terms for treatment. It's
Yeah.
very helpful for a child to be able to express their feelings with somebody that they don't know. So counseling is always, recommended. There's an array of counselors. What if you look up, there's so many. There are so many. Like I said, again, the pediatrician can always recommend a counselor. At school, they've received counseling at school. Most of the time, it's not going to be the type of counseling that would be for depression and anxiety. So looking outside of school is always recommended for that. If you feel like your child is exhibiting like extreme symptoms, they're having suicide ideation, they found a plan, you saw a text message, you saw a note, something, you're like really concerned, take them to the hospital, call, there's a behavioral hospital, the Renaissance Behavioral, there's, also on Trenton, there's a behavioral hospital. So do not hesitate. Don't hesitate to get help for your child.
Thank you so much for coming and being on my newfound show. I feel like I learned a lot, and that's why I felt that it was important for me to have you, and so I'm so thankful that you came.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. I just really hope that a lot of people can connect with what we talked about. I know it's a personal experience of mine too, having children, and then I know a lot of viewers also have kids as well. So it's just important to kind of, watch out for signs, right, that we talked about. Give yourself also a little bit of credit, and just, some self-care, because that's going to help us how we treat our children. Yes. And they're our future for tomorrow. So I know we love our kids. So thanks for watching.
So if you like this video, go ahead, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and we'll be seeing you on the next one. This is the Beauty Parlor Room.